There are certain places on this earth that actively reject the modern world. You can pave them over with asphalt. You can map them with satellites, and you can drive through them in machines of steel and glass. But the land remembers. It remembers the blood spilled into its soil. The Black Forest in Germany is one of those places. It is a primordial ocean of towering pine trees, so dense that the canopy chokes out the sun. Locals know better than to wander off the marked trails. They know that when the thick freezing fog rolls in from the mountains, the forest does not just hide the trees, it opens doors to the past. Tonight's story is about the fatal arrogance of the modern traveler. It is about a boundary drawn in the dirt, the terrifying weight of a locked door, and the ultimate price of stepping outside when you have been warned to stay in. It was 10 minutes past midnight. Caleb and his wife Anna were exhausted. They were navigating a detour miles off the main Autobahn, attempting to shave an hour off their journey back to their hotel in Bavaria. The heater in their SUV was running on full blast, fighting a losing battle against the bitter November chill. Outside their windows there was nothing but a suffocating wall of black pine and white mist.
I'm telling you, Anna, the GPS has completely lost its mind. It hasn't updated our location in 20 minutes. It just shows us driving through a blank green square.
Just turn around, Caleb. Please. This road is getting narrower, and I haven't seen a street sign or another car since we left the highway. It feels wrong. The trees, they look like they're leaning into the road.
I can't turn around here. The shoulders are pure mud. We'd get stuck. I just need to push through to the next junction. We'll be fine.
But the forest had already made its decision. A sudden, violent shudder tore through the chassis of the SUV. The engine gave one pathetic, metallic groan and died. The dashboard lights flickered wildly before snapping to black. The headlights dimmed to a faint yellow, and then they too extinguished. Complete, suffocating darkness swallowed them. Caleb turned the key frantically. Nothing, not even a click from the battery. He pulled out his phone. The screen cast a pale, ghostly light on his face. No service, not a single bar. The silence that followed was absolute. It wasn't the peaceful quiet of nature. It was a heavy, predatory silence. As the temperature inside the cabin rapidly dropped, their breath began to plume in the freezing air. Through the frost creeping onto the windshield, Anna spotted something, deep within the woods, far off the dirt road. A faint, flickering orange glow. With no thermal gear and the temperature dropping below freezing, staying in the metal tomb of the car meant risking hypothermia. They grabbed their heavy wool coats, a single flashlight, and stepped out into the biting wind. The walk through the woods was agonizing. The mud pulled at their boots, and the twisted roots of the ancient pines seemed to deliberately trip them in the dark. The fog clung to their clothes like wet wool. After 20 minutes of blind navigation, the trees suddenly broke, revealing a forgotten clearing. It was the rotting remains of a 17th century hamlet. Most of the timber-framed cottages had long since collapsed, surrendering to the moss and the earth. It smelled of damp, rot, old ash, and something metallic, like copper. But at the very center of the ruins stood one solitary cabin. It was intact, with smoke drifting lazily from its stone chimney, and a lantern swinging violently on the porch. Standing beneath the lantern, framed by the heavy oak doorway, was an old man. He was wrapped in a thick, tattered wool coat, his face obscured by a wide-brimmed felt hat. He did not look surprised to see them. He simply watched them approach with eyes that looked like clouded glass.
The machines of iron always fail where the earth is angry. You bring the scent of gasoline to a place of blood and dirt, Come inside. Quickly. The mist is thickening, and the woods are waking up.
Caleb and Anna hurried up the wooden steps and crossed the threshold. The moment they were inside, the old man slammed the massive oak door shut. He grabbed a heavy, rusted iron bolt and dragged it across the wood with a deafening scrape. The inside of the cabin was bare. No furniture, no electricity, just the rough-hewn floorboards and a fire crackling fiercely in a stone hearth.
Thank you. Our car died about a mile back. Is there a landline here or a radio? We just need to call a tow truck when morning comes.
The old man did not answer immediately. He walked to the fire, staring into the flames.
There are no lines to the outside world here. You are standing in a graveyard of the unholy. You may rest on these floorboards tonight, but you must understand exactly where you are and what you must do to survive until the sun rises.
Anna stepped closer to Caleb, her voice trembling.
What do you mean, survive? Who else is out there?
During the 30 Years' War, this forest was a slaughterhouse. A band of deserters, mercenaries who had lost their minds to the violence of the world, made this hamlet their lair. They were brigands of the worst kind. They did not just rob the merchants and travelers who passed through these woods. They hunted them. For sport, they would string men up from the pines. They would butcher families for the few silver coins sewn into their coats. They committed atrocities so vile that a dying priest, bleeding out on this very soil, cursed them with his final breath. He bound their souls to the mud. Every night, when the fog rolls in, the curse drags them back from hell. They wake up hungry, and they wake up hunting.
Caleb let out a nervous, breathless laugh, shaking his head. He thought the old man was insane, a local eccentric trying to scare off tourists. But the old man turned, his cloudy eyes locking onto Caleb with terrifying intensity. He pointed a long, crooked finger at the heavy oak door.
The walls of this cabin were built from consecrated wood. The threshold, the wooden frame of that door, is your absolute boundary. As long as that iron bolt remains in place, the evil cannot cross into this room. The cabin itself is your shield, but hear me now, and hear me well. Do not unbolt that door, no matter what sounds you hear, no matter what horrors play out in the dirt outside. Most importantly, no matter who begs for your mercy. The things in the woods cannot enter, so they must trick you into leaving. If you step past the threshold, the protection is broken, and your souls belong to the forest.
With those final, chilling words, the old man turned and retreated into a small back room, shutting the door behind him, leaving Caleb and Anna alone with the dying fire. For the first few hours, it was just cold and uncomfortable. They sat huddled together on the hard floorboards, the only sound being the slow, rhythmic ticking of Caleb's wristwatch. Then, the watch struck 2 a.m. It began as a low, guttural vibration in the floorboards. Then a cacophony of horror erupted outside. The silence of the forest was shattered by the thunderous pounding of heavy horse hooves splashing through the mud. It sounded like an army of the dead had descended upon the clearing. Anna clamped her hands over her ears as phantom screams. The agonizing cries of men, women, and children being butchered tore through the night air. Heavy, invisible bodies slammed against the exterior of the cabin. The wood groaned and shuddered. The clashing of steel swords rang out, followed by cruel, demonic laughter echoing in Old German.
Don't move, Anna. Don't move. It's just the wind playing tricks. Don't look at the door. Just close your eyes.
For 20 agonizing minutes, the massacre raged outside. And then, just as abruptly as it began, it completely stopped. The violence cut out, replaced by a dead, heavy silence. But it wasn't empty. The air felt thick, expectant. Then a single voice pierced the quiet. It was small, fragile, trembling with terror.
Caleb. Caleb, please. Are you in there?
Caleb's blood turned to ice in his veins. He stopped breathing.
Caleb, please answer me. I'm so cold. My car crashed in the fog. My ankle is broken, Caleb. Someone is hunting me.
It was Sarah, Caleb's younger sister, the sister he had practically raised, the sister who was supposed to be safe in her university dorm in London, hundreds of miles away. It made absolutely no logical sense. It defied all reason. But logic has no power over a brother's heart when his family is screaming in the dark.
Sarah? Oh my God. Sarah, how did she find us? I have to let her in.
Caleb, stop. Think about it. She is in England. How could she possibly be outside a cabin in the middle of a German forest? It's a trick. The old man told us they mimic the living. They want you to open the door.
Caleb, they're coming. The men with the knives. They're right behind the trees. Caleb, remember when we were kids? Remember the tree house? You promised you would always protect me. You promised. Please, Caleb. He has me. He has me. Caleb.
The scream that followed was blood-curdling. It was the exact, undeniable pitch of his sister in mortal agony. The use of a childhood memory, something only Sarah could possibly know, snapped Caleb's mind. He violently shoved Anna backward. She tumbled hard onto the wooden floorboards as Caleb sprinted toward the door. He grabbed the heavy iron bolt.
Caleb, no. Please.
The screech of the rusted iron bolt sliding back echoed like a gunshot in the small room. Caleb threw the heavy door open, exposing the cabin to the howling, freezing mist. He stepped past the wooden threshold, his boots sinking deep into the wet, freezing mud of the forest.
Sarah, I'm right here. I've got you.
Anna watched from the floor, paralyzed by a creeping, suffocating dread. Caleb took 2 more steps into the fog. And then, the weeping, terrified voice of his sister twisted. It deepened, distorting into a wet, guttural, vibrating snarl that shook the leaves on the trees. There was a sickening sound of flesh tearing, a violent, wet crunch. Caleb let out a single, muffled gasp, followed by the heavy thud of a body hitting the mud. Anna screamed. Pure adrenaline flooded her veins. She lunged forward, grabbed the iron ring of the massive door, and hauled it shut. She threw her entire body weight against the iron bolt, dragging it back into place just as something massive slammed into the other side of the wood. Outside, the forest went dead silent. Anna backed away slowly, retreating to the furthest, darkest corner of the cabin. She pulled her knees to her chest, trembling so violently her teeth chattered. 10 agonizing minutes passed. Then, a soft, rhythmic tapping on the heavy oak door.
Anna.
It was Caleb's voice, but it was stripped of all its humanity. It echoed, flat and hollow, as if it was speaking through a throat filled with black mud and crushed leaves.
Anna, unbolt the door, darling. I found Sarah. We're both out here. The old man was lying to us, sweetheart. It's perfectly safe. Just open the door and come be with your husband.
Anna buried her face in her hands, biting her own lip so hard the metallic taste of blood filled her mouth, just to keep herself from screaming.
Anna.
The voice at the door dropped an octave. It lost Caleb's inflection entirely, turning into a wet, rasping hiss. Suddenly, it sounded as if a dozen different men were speaking through Caleb's vocal cords in perfect, horrific unison.
My skin is so cold, Anna. They took my eyes. They took my tongue. Won't you let your husband warm himself by the fire?
Heavy clawed scratching began at the base of the door. The thick oak groaned as immense pressure was applied from the outside. Anna crawled forward, her heart threatening to burst through her ribs, and pressed her ear near the bottom crack of the door frame.
I can smell your fear right through the wood, Anna. He tasted just like you do. If you don't invite us in, we will just have to wear his face until morning.
For the rest of the night, Anna endured pure psychological hell. The thing outside wearing her husband's voice wept, raged, and begged. It threw its stolen body against the bolted timber, rattling the rusted hinges. It whispered secrets that only Caleb knew, twisting them into grotesque threats. But Anna never moved. She never stepped closer to the threshold. She stayed anchored within the protective boundary of the cabin. Hours bled into one another. Until finally, a pale grey morning light began to creep through the cracks in the window shutters. The moment the first ray of dawn touched the dirt, the scratching stopped. The oppressive, suffocating weight that surrounded the cabin vanished like smoke in the wind. Anna sat frozen on the floorboards for another hour. It wasn't until the birds began to chirp that she finally gathered the strength to stand. Her hands were bruised purple as she pulled back the iron bolt. The heavy door creaked open to reveal a peaceful, sunlit morning forest. The fog had completely lifted. There were no demonic brigands. There was no old man. Looking around, Anna realized the cabin she had sheltered in was mostly a ruin. The roof was largely caved in. The back room didn't exist, and the hearth had been cold for centuries. The only things fully intact were the floorboards she had slept on and the heavy wooden doorway. And Caleb was gone. The only trace of him was his heavy winter coat, lying neatly folded on the mud, exactly where he had stepped past the threshold. Beside it lay his silver wedding band, completely crushed flat. Anna walked the 5 miles back to the main highway alone. The local German authorities combed the woods with dogs and helicopters for weeks, but they found absolutely nothing. Officially, they classified Caleb as a tragic victim of exposure, lost to the treacherous terrain of the Black Forest. But Anna knows the truth. She knows that somewhere deep in those ancient woods, whenever the freezing fog rolls in, Caleb is still standing on the other side of a heavy wooden door, using a dozen different voices, just begging to be let inside.